Hi, I am Melissa. I am an alcoholic and recovering addict, and I am finishing the second part of the questions in the life recovery workbook. Um, if you didn't see the first part, you can go on my YouTube page and you'll see it. Okay, so the next question on the page was. Oh, I was on the next page. Okay. Um, all right. So, what happens in the past that still provokes fear in me today? I'll type that in here. What have I done in the. Oh, sorry. What happened in the past that still provokes fear in me today? Okay. So, all right, so I guess part of step one, all right, is, like it says, is admitting your powerlessness. And that's just your overall powerlessness. Like, there's so many things that people are powerless over, sometimes I'm powerless over anger. For the most part, I am powerless over fear. I have to say it is my biggest downfall. I have anxiety and I don't know how to deal with it sometimes. So, what happened in my past that still provokes fear in me today? Um, I was in two really bad car accidents. They were both intentional, um, and so that I can't really ride with people. That's a big fear for me. Getting in the car with somebody. It kind of hits that PTSD thing, and I'm like, this person may try to kill me, because that was their intention, and it's just crazy that's happened to me twice in a lifetime. Um, but it has. But that's what my addiction did. It put me in the company of people who were like that, that were toxic and when they were not on drugs, I'm sure they were totally different people. But I didn't know them then. So I knew them when they were using. Um, the next question is, when do I feel the most cared for? Um, I'll type that in here too. I have to say, I feel the most cared for when I'm at church. Um, I I always go up after the service and I have them, pray for me, and um, and they are just. I go to City Church. I'll type that in here too. Um, Pastor Dave and his wife Summer and the whole prayer team up there, they are amazing. I guess you would kind of consider it a mega church, but they they don't just tickle your ear. They talk about sin, and they talk about, they're not just talking about the promises of what God can do for you. They talk about, these are the things in life that you shouldn't do. You know, I feel like our pastor there covers the ground of what you're supposed to cover in a church. So that's when I feel the most cared for. Or when I go to an AA meeting and I'm like just having a really bad day, and my sponsor or the one of the women in the group will just be like, they'll come up and give me a hug. And you know people in recovery are usually really good about being there for each other because we know what we're going through, and especially when we're doing stuff one, because you had to you have to like it's your pride's got to go, and you just have to know that you're powerless, and because of that powerlessness, your life is completely unmanageable. You can't, there's just some things people cannot do, and drinking and doing drugs for me is that's I don't have the luxury of doing that anymore because I do it in excess and then I go to jail. So, or I have a heart attack. Okay. Next question is, what do I see in my life that reveals God's care for me? Do I see in my life? All right. So, for me, um, God has been a blessing. Okay. I have been through, and I didn't realize, honestly, okay, so this is just really being a little vulnerable for a minute. Last January, I went through like a bad state of depression. Um, and I don't know how to explain it. It was just, it was like that is when he found me. And something in me just woke up, and I started watching Stephen Furtick, Elevation Church. Sorry, if I have like anything that, whatever has helped me through, I'm gonna put in the chat, because I'm willing to like give you my resources because I know what it's like to be in recovery and to need help and not to want to ask for it because it's not that easy. And because we do want to do it by ourselves, and but we shouldn't, we shouldn't do it for ourselves. But I started watching, Elevation Church, and um, you know I started listening to, I stopped listening to all of my old music, um, and I started listening to Christian music, because junk in, junk out. Okay. And I don't hang around anybody who does not go to church. So what I see in my life that God, how God cares for me. For one, He let me live through a heart attack when I relapsed, um, and He let me live through them two car accidents. So I mean, that's just the big ones. I mean, that's just the major ones. I mean, there I put myself in so many situations where um, I was stupid. You know what I mean? Like I had like no fear. You know what I mean? Like I I God has done so much in my life. I can't even begin to tell you all of it. Okay. The next question is, when I continue to pursue my own agenda without asking God for direction, what happens in my life? All right. So when I run on my own will, all right. Usually, uh, I hit a brick wall. Um, I did 42 years of my will, and that put me in jail twice, prison twice, the hospital a few times. Um, I had a heart attack. It My will doesn't do much for me. I don't make good choices. So I don't pick good men to date. I don't I don't hang out with good people. Uh, I I I throw away my family, my kids. I don't, I don't isolate. So that's what my will does for me. Um, God's will does the opposite. You know, and it took me a while to find out. Like I was like, what do you mean God's will? God's will? I don't get it. But and to be honest with you, it is a very hard thing to explain, um, to submit yourself, you know, but you just have to, you have to get a strong prayer life. Um, and it, one is, it just falls into place. You know, they put these 12 steps in order for a reason. And, you know, they're very smart the way they did it. You know, the people who wrote the big book, you know, Bill Wilson, I mean, that man was a genius, you know, but he got all of his stuff from the Bible, you know, because it originated from the Oxford groups, but the Oxford groups were, it started out religion, you know, and people in recovery don't want to start out religion. They're like, "Nah," you know, but so what Bob or Bill Wilson did was he was like, all right, so we're gonna just gonna curveball it, you know what I mean? And we're gonna just make it where people can have a higher power. But you know, I loved how they did that. But when I found my higher power and I found my God, I realized that I felt, a friend told me that in a way that is denying my God. And that's why I'm doing these podcasts, because I don't uh, I don't want to do that. So, but I love how, you know, the AA structure is. I mean, it's it's saved my life, and I don't disagree with any of it, because it does take time to get people to find God. And you know, sometimes, you know, not everybody finds God. um, and but that's not for us to push, you know, because if you get pushy, then it will mess up future endeavors. You know, that's exactly what it says. So, um, all right. So the next question is: are there areas of my life in which God may have to use extreme measures before I will listen for direction? Um, I mean, so I'm gonna put this in the chat. Are there areas of my life in which God may have to use extreme measures before I will listen for direction? All right, so I guess, yeah, um, not anymore. No, I'm good. If I feel like, when I had my relapse, I had a heart attack. You know, that was, I feel like that was God saying, "Yep, no, that's not gonna happen." You know, it was just His nice, gentle way of saying, "This is your last chance." You know, so everything I do has to be the hard way. I don't think there's anything in my life that I've learned that was the easy way. Um, to be honest with you, period. Uh, which areas? I I'm not like saying that I'm perfect, but I spend, I do have quiet time where I do listen to see, you know, and I pray. And I know it sounds crazy to say that God talks to me, but like, I feel like He does, and I feel like I listen. I don't do anything impulsive. Um, as far as like these videos, this um, was a couple months thought before, and I wanted to read the Bible and get that finished. So I had some biblical knowledge, because they say not to, you know, to watch out for false prophets and stuff like that. And The last thing I wanted to do was get on here and say something wrong about the Bible and lead somebody in the wrong direction. And I don't want to do that at all. So, just I just had to fix my impulsive actions and decisions. And that was really it. What will it take for me to listen to God? Okay, as for somebody doing their first step for the first time, sometimes, it depends. I mean, like, if things are like not working, if I keep trying this and trying this won't work, trying this won't work, trying that won't work, obviously, God's saying, hey, you know, you're not gonna, we're not doing this, so uh, if you're trying things and it ain't working, just try listening to God. All right. These questions are the last four, and it's the paradox of powerlessness. And it says, these examples of when I have demonstrated acceptance of my own powerlessness and God's powerfulness. These are examples of when I have demonstrated acceptance of my own powerlessness. Okay. I can't type. Of when I have demonstrated, I did, demonstrated acceptance. Shoot. Stop. Sorry. I should shut off my notifications. Acceptance of my own powerlessness and God's powerfulness. All right, so examples of when I've demonstrated acceptance of my own powerlessness. I guess I would have to say, like it was, um, so when I stopped using drugs, it was right after the time, right after my last car accident. I had a external fixator on my leg, and it was this hideous device, and I called it my A-frame house, right? And I was in a wheelchair, and it was very inconvenient for a homeless meth head. Nobody really wanted me to go to their house because, I mean, I had this thing that it was on my entire leg. Um, so, and, I just felt so exposed of, like just tossed to the side because um, when I was able to run and do this and that, people wanted me around, but now that I was down for the count, you know, I was helpless. It was winter time, and it was just all bad, and by the time I got it taken off my leg, I couldn't do it no more. I was done. This lady at the hospital, she talked to me and she was like, what about rehab? And I was like, I never thought of that, because I didn't. I really never thought about quitting. It just did not ever register in my mind. I just knew I was tired of living like I was. It didn't mean that I was tired of doing drugs, but you know, that's where my own powerlessness and then God's powerfulness, because the program, he was a big part of my program. He was the what they call the keystone of the program. So, um, what do I do when it seems that God or someone else has abandoned me? All right. So, I mean, if you're like me, we have abandonment issues. I've been that way my whole life. I was uh, the one who had to be up my mom all the time. She used to tell me, distance makes the heart grow fonder, leave so I can miss you. And so, like, when she would go places, I would be crushed, you know what I mean? Like, even as an adult, like, I was just, so when she died, um, I had that lingering abandonment that just came with me for like 20 years, and, um, but I've learned to deal with that. Actually, I really haven't. I just choose to stay single, and I don't really have the answer for that one. But as far as like God abandoning me, I do have times where I feel like it's quiet, but I know that abandonment is not the case there. It took me a while to trust and to because like I had put forth no good energy. I gave nobody reason to trust me. So, you know, so why would I trust anybody? And that was my attitude towards everything. Just because I wasn't trustworthy, so nobody else was trustworthy. So, why would God be trustworthy? And I until I did my steps, and I seen the part that I took in my actions. I played the victim, so I was like, well, if God let me go through all that, uh he doesn't love me. Why would he let me go through all that? Well, really, I did it to myself. And when you write it down on paper, on black and white, you will see that you know these things wouldn't have happened had you not stayed in that relationship, had you not been drunk, had you not been out that night, had you not been hanging out with that person, so you shouldn't have passed out at their house. I'm just saying, I'm just spitballing here, but you know, you got to take responsibility for your actions. But you know, I I don't give people a chance to abandon me. Um, I don't know. I just I have that barrier up. Um, so that's not a good. I guess I'm not good on answering that question either. But that I live alone, so and I so when I have gatherings and stuff, I'm still the one. Uh, like I will get up and leave before my family gets up, so I don't have to say bye to them because departures are hard for me. So I feel like abandonment and goodbye and all that, it kind of goes hand in hand for me, and I really struggle with that. And like I can't even like do the hugs goodbye without bawling and feeling like emotionally shattered because I'm so used to making decisions that put people at distance, so and even now that I'm not living that way, it's still hard. We still have to um we had to work on our minds, right? Because it was our mind that made us an addict or an alcoholic or whatever the case may be. It was our thinking. You know what I mean? It is the stinking thinking. That's what my stepdad always tells me. that made us the way we are. You know, when we go to meetings, you know, most of the time, the people, they start out their stories. You know, I didn't really fit in. You know, I didn't really have a lot of friends. You know, a lot of people start their stories out like that, and I was one of those people too. Um, and I didn't have God in my life. And I'm not blaming my parents. I love my parents. They were good. They did their best for me. So I have no excuse. You know, I have nobody to blame it on except for me. Um, just for that record, you know. Um, but all right. So I wanted to finish that. So we are done with step one. And if you have any questions, I just got this set up. So I think that you can message me in the chat. So, all right. Have a good day. I'll be back with step two.